And take a few moments to allow the weight of your body to shift, to settle, to melt a little more into the earth beneath you. So, particularly with afternoon practice, we're already kind of in the throes of the day, and we tend to come to practice kind of holding ourselves quite keenly. So, it does take a few moments longer to just remind yourself to let go of that tension in the shoulders, to relax the space at the back of the hips, to let the arms become heavy, softening the fingers, and to relax the inner thighs, soften the ankles. And if you need to adjust by bending the knees to support the lower back, find the position where you feel best supported so that we can come to zero desire for movement, an intention to let go, to push your to-do list to one side, checking in with those areas of the body where you typically hold on to tension, relaxing the jaw, softening the temples, resting the tongue in the well of the mouth, and just allowing a little whisper of breath between the lips. Soften the eyebrows. Release that frown. And as you relax the muscles of the face, the muscles of the head, become aware of the weight at the back of your head, sinking a little more deeply into the earth beneath you. That release through the back of the neck, across the shoulders, softening through the collarbones, through the wide muscles of the chest, releasing the weight of your spine, settling into a sensation of the whole body, soft, heavy, completely released. Now bring your focus to the breath. And start to become aware without judgment of the natural rhythm of your breath. Follow the breath along the nasal passages. Widen and expanding into the lungs and the rib cage. Every out breath, softening and releasing the full weight of your body. By granting ourselves permission to submit, to release, we create space within the body to allow the flow of positive energy. Visualizing that flow of energy from the top of the head all the way down to the soles of the feet. With each deep breath in, feel yourself expand and widen into the space that surrounds you. With every full breath out, letting go of anything that doesn't serve you. So we're very much creating an intention of stepping into our practice today, feeling charged and energized, released of any toxins, any negative energy. feeling the steady flow of the breath. Now allow the breath to become a little noisier. Every exhale, breathing out through the mouth. Every inhale through the nose. Coming to the end of each full breath. No rush. After this next full inhalation, release the exhale with an audible sigh. A further deep breath in. Another audible sigh. A further deep breath in. A third noisy exhalation. Then as you come to your next inhale, if the knees are bent, extend the legs along the mat and draw the feet a little closer together. On the exhale, widen again through the back of the shoulder blades. Then on the inhale, lift the arms overhead and take a long stretch here. Pointing through fingers, pointing through toes. Bringing thumbs together in an interlock, then drawing the toes in towards the shins. On the next exhale, push the upper body to the right, opening out to the left of the waist and the rib cage. Then inhale once more to return to center. Take a moment to re-lengthen, pressing through fingers and toes. Then once more, draw the thumbs together. Draw those feet back to flexion and out breath to the left side, opening out through the right of the waist and the rib cage. Inhale again to return to center, taking a long stretch through the whole body. An out breath to hug the right knee in, placing the hand to the shin. Applying a little pressure here to widen the space in the lower back across the sacrum. Directing that right knee out towards the right shoulder. Then drawing little circles with the knee, mobilizing some space into the hip joint. Then repositioning the hands behind the thigh. So for now, we'll keep the knee bent as we draw the thigh a little closer to the chest. Let's feel that weight through the back of the hips. Then inhale to drive the right foot towards the ceiling. Press through the heel. This will be quite a tight stretch to the back of the hamstrings. So we'll release that resistance by inhaling to point the toe, exhaling to flex. Inhale to point, exhale to flex. Push again through the heel, then draw that thigh a little closer to the chest. On the out breath, bend the right knee. As you replace that right foot to the floor, allow the right knee to roll open. You might want to just park the sole of the right foot to the inside of the left thigh. And as you allow gravity to roll the knee open, try to find equal weight through the back of the hips. So softening the pelvis, finding a little release to the inner thigh. Then bring the hands behind the head. We're going to place one hand on top of the other. Open wide through the arms, let the elbows rest. So we can feel that release through the chest, through that inner thigh, in and around the hip and the groin. As you exhale, draw the tummy button in and extend that right leg forward. Rest that right leg on the mat. And so that we don't get lost on which hand, we're just going to use the opposite hand now to come to cradle the head. So we're just shifting one hand underneath, one hand on top. Then bend the left knee up and roll that knee out. So this time we're just resting the sole of the left foot to the inside of the right thigh. Again, we need a moment to allow gravity to adjust to extend into that inner thigh stretch. And we're opening through the sides of the rib cage, releasing those pectoral muscles. As you exhale, draw the tummy button in, and we'll roll that knee back to center, so bent knee. On the out breath, hug that left knee in towards the chest. Again, we're applying a little pressure onto the shin, widens the space in the lower back. Then direct that knee out towards the left shoulder. As you return that knee to center, draw little circles with the knee, easing into that hip. Returning to center once more and bringing the hands to an interlock behind the left thigh. So for now, we keep the knee bent to draw the thigh closer towards the belly. Then inhale to push through that left heel. So for those of us who are very tight in the hamstrings, we'll really feel this lengthen, this stretch. So we'll just switch it off by inhaling to point the toe, then coming back to exhale to flex. Inhale to point, exhale to flex. Press again through the heel and draw the thigh a little closer again. On the out breath, bend that left knee again. Then we'll bring the right knee in, so both knees in towards the chest. As you place the hands on the shins or on top of the knees, visualize that you're drawing a figure of 8. So we're kind of rocking and rolling over the back of the hips, softening into the lower back, then rolling back towards center. Reposition the hands either side of the hips, turning the palms up towards the ceiling and drawing the shoulder blades together. On an out breath, be very mindful of drawing the tummy button in and pushing the lower back to the floor. We want to support the lower back as we press both heels up towards the ceiling. So for comfort, you may prefer to just take the heels hip width apart, to gently nudge the toes in towards the shins. And I'm mindful that again, you become aware of this stretch to the back of the hamstrings. So to keep the focus on the core engagement, wide through the chest on the inhale, on the exhale, draw the tummy button in and float the heels down about 1/3 of the way. So you almost feel as though you're kind of teetering on that flat bone above the bottom. Inhale to point both toes. Then as you come to flexion, iron out those little bends in the knee, push through the heels. Inhale to point. Exhale to flex. One more time, pointing, then flexing. Don't worry about the jelly beans in the tummy, that's fine. Then we'll take a little bend to the left knee. I like my left knee to be about a 90-degree angle. Then lower that right heel down to rest 1 inch from the floor. Use the heel to draw 3 wide circles. And only go as wide as you feel your lower back and your hips will tolerate. Change direction. That leg that you're using to draw the circle, again, try to just keep that little bend out the knee. Then inhale, lift both arms overhead. Keep that heel hovering 1 inch from the floor. Point through that right toe. Come back to flexion. Then on an out breath, switch the legs over. So bend the right knee up, extend the left heel forward, rest that heel 1 inch from the floor. We'll have that foot in flexion as we continue to rest the backs of the hands 1 inch from the floor. On an out breath, reposition the hands either side of the hips. Keeping the foot in flexion, draw those 3 wide circles. Remember to go both directions. Rest the heel again 1 inch from the floor. Inhale to point. Exhale to flex. Then hug both knees in towards the chest. Now push again through the heels. I'm going to offer you a little alternative here, a little modification. So oftentimes when we're in this supine Dandasana position, we kind of find that the tension, the resistance is in the lower back. So you might want to just try placing the hands underneath the bottom. And when I say under the bottom, I mean under the kind of fleshy bit. If you rest the bone onto the back of the hands, it starts to kind of cut off the blood supply. But it's enough to just lift the hips and alleviate tension in the lower back. Push again through the heels. Draw the tummy button in. We're going to keep the left leg where it is. We're going to extend the right leg out to the right side. So we don't want to feel as though we're rolling over to one side. So make sure that the weight through the back of the hips is equally distributed. Engage the core. Draw that right foot back to center. Then take the left foot wide. Use the out breath to engage the core. Come back to center. Then on the next exhale, widen both legs. Push through the heels, engage the core. And in this widened position, we'll just do 3 little pulses. So we're only lifting the heels together a couple of inches, 3, 2, and 1. Then pausing in that wide leg posture. Repeating 3, 2, and 1. Then as you exhale, draw the legs back to center. Release the hands from under the bottom and hug the knees again in towards the chest. Widen the arms, turning the palms up towards the ceiling. Then on an out breath, roll the knees to the right, turn the gaze over the left arm. And let the full weight of your shoulders release back and down. Breathing into the side of the ribcage. Just take a few moments here to allow the flow of energy from palm to palm. Seeking out any tightness, any resistance to the side of the left of the ribcage. Softening that left shoulder to the floor. Then as you exhale, core engagement again to roll the knees back to center and take the knees to the opposite side. So as we held that posture for quite some time on the first side, it might feel like the right shoulder wants to creep up. So breathe it back to the floor, turn your gaze along the length of that right arm, and let gravity work out what's going on with the legs, with the knees. If you have any pain in the lower back, it may be that you just have to bring the knees a little closer rather than extending fully to the side. Again, the focus is on feeling the breath here at this space at the side of the rib cage. Then as you exhale, draw the tummy button in and roll those knees back again towards center. Good. Replace the feet on the floor and we'll position the soles of the feet together. So we're coming into that space in the inner thigh again, widening the knees. And we'll change our arm position one more time. We'll take the hands overhead, but we'll probably make a Y shape rather than drawing the shoulders too far up towards the ears. So let the shoulders relax back and down. In my case, the elbows are bent to allow for my upper back to connect with the floor. Just let that natural lift in the lower back happen. If you try to fight it too much, you'll end up pulling it more into the groin and feeling a strain there. So we're just going to let gravity release the knees. You can feel those wide muscles of the back softening and releasing. We're finding all that space in the inner thigh. Then as you exhale, draw the tummy button in and slide the knees towards one another. Reposition the heels hip width apart. Draw the heels in a little closer towards the bottom And we'll float the hands back down either side of the hips, so we're not too exposed through that shoulder girdle. So you can now feel a real connection through the back of the shoulder blades. Become very aware of the connection through the soles of the feet. Exhale to draw the tummy button in, and inhale to lift the bottom from the mat. So we call this a supported bridge pose because we're equally distributing the weight between the shoulders and the back of the shoulder blades and the soles of the feet. If we overweight towards the upper body, we tend to feel tension in the neck. So mindfully press the shins forward, inhaling to lift the thighs a little higher, opening the belly and the chest towards the ceiling, trying to keep those knees tracking in line with the hips. Then on and out breath, take your time tarting at the space between the shoulder blades to gently roll down vertebra by vertebra. It's much more enjoyable if we can take it slowly here and really connect into each vertebra. And when you get that sense of resting the lower back to the floor, it almost feels as though the back of the hips is sinking back to the mat. On an out breath, draw both knees in towards the chest. Then as you replace the feet to the floor, prepare to roll to whichever side is most comforting to you. So remember, if you have low blood pressure, you might want to choose the left side. And we've been laid down a while, so don't rush. We'll come back up to a comfortable seated position. Nice. So come into a wide leg position, turning the toes up towards the ceiling. I can see something on the camera, but I can't see it on the carpet. There's nothing there. Lift up out of the sit bones. Then as you exhale, just gently take the hands forward. So we're back into that space in the inner thighs, but we're remembering everything we've learned about that nice diagonal line from the back of the head to the tailbone. So rather than letting the head drop, we keep the shoulder blades drawn together. We lead with the sternum. And then as you exhale, we just ease the elbows a little closer towards the floor. So we're really opening into the heart space, easing a little more deeply towards the earth. If you need to, let the knees ping up, so we've got a little gap behind the knees. Then slide the hands out. You can either grab hold of the shins, the ankles, or if you can reach the big toe or the soles of the feet. And again, let's not feel that we have to push the head forward to reach. Keep the shoulder blades drawn together. And as you exhale, ease a little more deeply into this space. Beautiful. Blimey, I think that's the most flexible I've seen you all. We should do that more often, all that wide leg stuff at the beginning. Then as you exhale, draw the tummy button in, reposition the hands under the hips. So we'll use the hands under the shoulders to lift and lengthen and walk back to center so we don't overload the lower back. As we did lying down, we're going to bring that right foot in and rest the sole of the foot to the inside of the left thigh. Left toe pointing up towards the ceiling, lifting out of the sit bones. Beautiful. Position the right hand on the mat, and then we'll just press that hand a little further away, lift up and look up to the fingertips of the left hand. So notice that the right elbow is sinking towards the floor to just make that connection to widen a little more deeply into the side of the waist. Inhale to lift and come back to center. As you come back to center, make sure we're on equally weighted through the sit bones. There's a tendency to lift this left one up and put everything on the right. Let's bring the left hand to the right knee, the right hand behind the hip, lift and lengthen. Then as you exhale, come into a twist. So it's as though you're drawing your gaze towards the back of the room. But rather than getting fixated on looking over the shoulder, feel that you're opening that space at the side of the rib cage and coming into a deeper twist. Then as you exhale, release and bring your gaze forward. So important once more that we're equally weighted through the sit bones. I'm going to mobilize the rib cage. So we're turning the rib cage so that the sternum now effectively lines up with the big toe of the left foot. Both hands either side of the thigh. Then as you exhale, walk forward. So there's a temptation here to grab hold of the foot. It is permissible if you need to hold the foot just to draw you a little closer to the chest, but don't let that compromise the upper back. Don't let that curve the spine. So think more about easing the belly towards the thigh, extending and lengthening through the sternum, and just nudging a little bit closer towards the thigh. Then as you exhale, again, core engagement, hands in position to push yourself back to center so that you don't twang anything. Extend the right leg, bring the sole of the left foot in, that toe pointing up towards the ceiling. This time pressing the left hand away, looking up to the fingertips of the right hand as you lower that left elbow to the floor. So that right toe stays in flexion, so we keep that inner thigh switched on. And just notice, has your right sit bone come off the floor? If so, just nudge it back to the mat. Deepen the stretch in the inner thigh. Then inhale to lift and come back to center. Pop that left hand behind the left hip. Start that opening through the shoulder girdle. Bring the right hand to the left knee. And we want to be sure that we're not pulling the knee towards the chest. So let gravity keep that knee wide, follow the rib cage, and turn your gaze again towards the back of the room. Then as you exhale, release, turn your gaze forward. Then once more, it's almost like we're isolating the rib cage, lining up the sternum with the big toe, then completing that little walk forward. It's not unusual to find that one side's a little more flexible than the other. So it may be that we can't quite reach the foot. It may be that the opposite knee pings up a lot more. To make sure that we're keeping ourselves safe, just ensure that both sit bones are fully connected and we're extending and lengthening into that thigh. Then as you exhale, use the hands for support, engage the core, and walk back towards center. Good. Now bring the soles of the feet together. Lift again out of the sit bones. Let gravity soften the knees so we're not holding the knees and putting tension into the upper body. And we'll use that core engagement to support the lower back. I've got hold of the right toe as I push through the heel. And I have a tendency here to lean forward and kind of collapse into the space. So widening the arm reminds you to lift out of the sit bones to open through the heart space, but keeping the top of the head parallel to the ceiling rather than pushing the chin up. Beautiful. I bring that foot back to center, lift and lengthen, and extend the opposite leg. Again, you'll very quickly get a sense that one leg is happier to play than the other. You might have one knee that's got a life of its own and it's desperately trying to keep you balanced. Then bring both feet together. Core engaged, root down through the sit bones, not the tailbone, and lift and open. So if the heart space is open, if the core is engaged, if the intention is there, we'll find it a lot more comfortable. I've just won 10 points, knocking someone over. Stick with it. Yay, we're there. Any airtime is a win. Then when you're ready, bring the soles of the feet together, lift and lengthen, and on an out breath, ease a little more deeply into the space. Oh, how lovely. The hips are getting a nice good workout today. I know it's not always the most popular option, but we obviously need it. As you exhale, draw the tummy button in, and we'll lift back to center, feeling aligned, extending the legs forward. So we'll get off our horse, because all that wide leg action makes you feel like you've just stepped off a saddle. Lift up out of the sit bones, and I'm going to bring the right knee in. So keep the left leg extended, the toe pointing up to the ceiling. Use the hands as an interlock in front of the shin to give you a little more purchase to lift and lengthen. We'll start by wrapping the left hand around the right calf, placing the right hand behind the hip. And if I go side on, you'll be able to see the twist easier. So when we first come into this position, it's not unusual to again have kind of collapsed through the spine. So we're using that back hand to really lift and lengthen out the sit bones. The usual rules apply. We'll follow the rib cage rather than the shoulder as we come into a twist. Now, for some of you, this first part of the twist will be enough, but we might find that we've got a little more space to bring the elbow over to the outside of the knee, to create a little bit of tension, pushing the knee out, the elbow in, and coming a little deeper into the twist. What I would say is, if your hand on the shin was enough, don't bother with the elbow. It's just the next stage to go to. We don't need to go there. Then as you exhale, release, bring your gaze forward and extend that leg forward. Bring the left leg in, hands onto the shin, lift and align once more. We'll keep the hand wrapped around the outside of the calf. So it might be a bit trickier for you to see because I'm turning away from you this time. The beauty of me turning away is hopefully you'll see that there's a relatively straight line here up the side of the body. And when I bring the elbow over, I'm not letting the knee fall out. I'm gently pushing the knee back, and I'm using that purchase to really expand and widen through the chest and get a deeper stretch to the back of the shoulders. Then as you exhale, release and bring your gaze forward. So extend both legs forward, and then we'll just gently slide the knees up a little bit closer. Lift up onto the sit bones, and then kind of lean the belly onto the thighs. I prefer to take hold of the big toes. So index finger, middle finger wrapped around the big toe. If that feels weird, if you're one of those people that doesn't like flip-flops, you might want to just pop the hands around the toes, keep the feet warm. And then on an out breath, it's harder on your sticky mats, but we're slightly going to squeeze the heels away. Remember, the legs are straight here. Beautiful. And we keep the sternum lifted, then ease a little more deeply into the fold. So I'll tell you now that I always keep a little gap behind the knees. I find it very difficult to not curve my upper thoracic spine. So the biggest job for me is remembering to lift the shoulder blades, to extend the sternum forward, and to deepen the stretch into the lower back. Again, if we ping out of this very quickly, it won't feel great in the lower back. So engage the core, release the hands from the feet, and then just gently walk the hands up the thighs. Perfect. So to quiet all of that down, because it's been quite active, we can feel there's quite a lot of heat going on in the core and in the hips. I'm going to come into hero pose. So not everyone is comfortable in this bent knee position. So if you need to prop a towel or a blanket underneath the ankles to release any tension there, then feel free to do so. You might alternatively have to stick something underneath the bottom to release tension from the knees. So a cushion is usually a good shout. A rolled up blanket if you have one. Perfect. Sue Kerner, you're slightly leaning forward in this position for me. Do you need anything underneath your bottom, or do you think it's just that you were... Usually if you're leaning forward, it kind of suggests that the knees don't really want to go there. So let's make sure that we feel comfortable. Superb. So this is quite funny, this will make you chuckle, but I always think that I have to get rid of my padding in this scenario. So I always take a moment to just kind of lift the padding up and then just sort of spread it away. I want to feel the absolute points of the sit bones resting onto the heels. So kind of when you wiggle side to side, you can actually feel the sit bones connecting with the heels. Good. Press the shins to the floor, and that will give you a sense that these muscles down the front of the thighs are engaging, and it will get rid of that tension in the lower back. So if you place the hands on the hips, let's feel how it is to press the hip bones forward. So you're kind of doing like a pelvic tilt up, forward and up. And then we'll go all the way through that full range of movement, creating a natural curve in the lower back. So inhaling, pressing forward, exhaling, rolling back. One more time, inhaling forward, exhaling back. Lovely. So as you come back to center, you'll feel as if you're quite far forward now. So we want to almost like tuck the tailbone down between the heels. And when you do that, you'll feel underneath your fingertips that the hip bones just slightly lift. And I want you to imagine, if you can, that you're closing the space between the hips. So visualize that you're drawing the hips together, and this will in turn tighten the lower abdominal muscles. So you'll feel the core will engage quite low down between the hips. Lovely. Now inhale, lift both arms up overhead. Bring the palms together into an Anjali Mudra and rest the ears between the upper arms. So this is an Iyengar position, and often in Iyengar what we do is we hold a posture to feel how the energy flows through the body. So keep pressing in through the shins, so you kind of get that build up of heat on top of the thighs. You can feel that engagement in the core because you're tucking the tailbone under, drawing the hip points together. But we've also got that added energetic layer of bringing the palms overhead, pushing through the fingertips. Take a deep breath in through the nose. And as you exhale, stick the tongue out. Deep breath in through the nose. Then out through the mouth. One more time. Sticking the tongue out. Visualize that core engagement again as you bring that Anjali Mudra back towards heart. Now that's a long time for anyone to sit in hero. So we'll gently take our weight forward. Jane, just pay particular attention to your knee when we come into this all fours position. This goes for anyone. If you have any limitation or any discomfort in either the wrists or the knees, it's almost better practice to take the limbs a little bit wider. It's better not to lift the hip to take the tension off the knee, because all it does is displace what's going on in the lower back. So we still want to be nicely balanced. So many times in class I've seen people put like a cushion under the knee, but if you can imagine, that just knocks your hips out. So turn both toes under, exhale, draw the tummy button in, roll up through the spine and nod the chin to the chest. Rest on the tops of the feet, and we'll basically turn that curve the opposite way. So we're allowing the belly to release, we're opening the sternum forward, then exhaling, rolling up. Then coming back into a neutral spine, all four position. Lovely. So I'm going to practice a little bit of an energy lock for you here. In yoga, we call it an energy lock or a bandha. In everyday life, we would call it pelvic floor because actually it's very helpful, particularly when we do go back to high impact and we feel that we need a little bit of support there. So we used to be taught sort of with the pelvic floor exercises that you were kind of stopping yourself from going from a wee mid-flow, which is not a good idea. Don't do it. That's not a good idea. The picture that I like to have in my mind is, rather than closing north to south, I like to sort of get my hips and think, right, east to west, and pull the hips together, and then do that little bit of drawing up in the pelvis. So just on a thumbs up basis, can you tell me if that makes sense? I always find this really difficult to... Couple of thumbs down. Right, okay. Fair enough. I'll come a little bit closer. I won't show you my bits. Don't worry. So quite often when we're in a face-to-face class, what I'll do is I'll get you to literally touch what's going on in my hips, because it's a really, I can literally move my hips together and really tighten this space here. So I'll show you this, and then I'm going to flip you over and do it in a different way. So what's easiest is when you're lying on your back, which is how we'll do it, we're going to find these bony, prominent parts of the hips. So they take a little bit of finding, to be fair, after a few months in lockdown, but they're there. And then if you just travel southward down these bony parts of the hips, you'll notice that there's quite stiff bands there, and they're kind of what are controlling the pelvic floor. So they kind of lift the pelvic floor up. So they very much hold everything in the lower abdominal region. So it's harder to feel sitting up. I'm just showing you this because if you're lying down, you won't see a thing of what's going on. So if I imagine pulling the hip bones, you can see actually the pattern of my leggings moves. So as I pull my hip bones together, there's kind of like a lift up and in that happens. But if I now run my fingers down, I can feel that those bands have really tightened up. It takes a little bit of practice. It does take a while. But you can see, oh gosh, I'll be showing you my tummy's terrible since lockdown. So that's me kind of like relaxed, letting it all go. When I do that lift up and in, gosh, I've lost about 2 inches. I should do that more often. Then it gives a much better abdominal control, and it activates this pelvic floor muscle that's running down towards the pelvis. So as I say, it's quite hard to do standing or the way we just did. So if you flip over onto your back, but you'd never, if you'd been lying on your back, you'd never have seen what I was trying to do. Beautiful. And then I would suggest bending the knees, because if you bend the knees, you're not going to be holding tension in the lower back and in the buttocks. And then place the fingertips on those hip bones. Beautiful. So for now, we're quite soft, we're relaxed. Bring your mind to bringing the hip bones together. So it was described to me as, imagine there's a draw cord and you're pulling your hip bones together, and it's just drawing the hip bones towards one another. And then release and let go. Because what will have happened is you've probably held the breath when you've done it. That's the next trick, doing it with the breath. So next time you do that sense of drawing the hip bones together, think about doing it on an out breath, and then run the fingertips down those tight, tough bands that are leading towards the pelvic bone. Just want you to feel the action. So you can come in and out of this. Oh yeah, I can really see it on some of you. That's totally worked. So you don't need to lift the belly. So Sue Kerner, you're a little bit active in the through the spine, I would say. Just let the spine relax, let the tummy do the work. The lower abdominals. Perfect. And then I'm going to get you to just relax everything. And all I want you to do is cough, just a loud cough. I've started you all off now. Hazel's having a little coughing fit. So all I want you to notice when you do that cough is nature tightens everything up and lifts everything up. So when I say to you to engage on an out breath, all you're doing is mimicking what would be natural. You kind of feel as if when you're tightening, you should be breathing in, but that's going against nature. A cough is an out breath. It's a very sharp out breath. So as you breathe out, The intention is to lift up and tighten. So once more, again with the method of thumbs up, thumbs down, did that make a little bit more sense? Can you feel it now? Oh, good, we're getting thumbs up. Yes, yes, I've nearly got a full house, huzzah. Brilliant, I can retire now. Because it's really hard to teach over a screen. As I say in class, it's not unusual for me to say, right, line up and everybody have a feel of my bits, because it's just the quickest way. I'm sure I'll get reported for it one day. I'm sure it's not a good thing to do. So flip back onto the all fours position. Now that you're experts. And again, just take it steady on your knee, Jane. And when we're in this all fours position, we've slightly changed gravity. So we managed to figure it out lying on our backs. So let's see if we can mimic that lifting of the pelvic floor just in this all fours position. So exhale, draw the hip bones together, lift the pelvic floor. So far, so good. That's it. And then every in-breath, just let it go. So just feel yourself kind of lifting it, then releasing it, lifting it, then releasing it. So just sit back for a moment and I'll explain. So as I mentioned, this is in yoga, we call this a bandha or a lock. And I've chosen today to start at the root chakra lock. So it's called the Mulhadara Bhanda. So it's the root lock that we're going to use. We're going to use the root lock when we do downward facing dog. I prefer teaching root lock and downward facing dog because you're upside down and gravity's working against me. So we have to work really hard to get that core engagement and that root lock or that pelvic floor lifted and drawn up. So if you come back into your all fours position, nice and soft in the elbows, turn the toes under. We've done lots of hamstring releasing already. So we're going to come straight up into the closest approximation as we can achieve in our downward facing dog, recognizing that we can't all get our heels on the floor. And the first job is to remember that point about taking your weight to the back of the room. So pushing the thighs back, lifting the tailbone. Now take a deep breath in through the nose. As you exhale, draw the hip points together and lift the pelvic floor. Inhale, exhale, re-engage, root lock. Then just keep the breath steady. So inhale follows exhale. And every exhalation, we're activating that root lock. Then on the next out breath, bending the knees, sitting back on the heels. Let the forehead come forward. And we've held ourselves up longer than we normally do in a down dog. So we're just going to pop the wrists either side of the ankles and draw little circles. Beautiful. So come back up into that all fours position. Did it make sense? Were you able to achieve that root lock upside down? I actually think upside down is quite a good way to do, sort of. Yeah, it takes a little bit of getting used to. Upside down's good because you can't rely on gravity. You have to make it work. Whereas when you're kind of standing or lying, gravity's going to give you a little bit of a helping hand. So I'm deliberately making it hard so that you know you're doing it. So I'd like you to push yourself back up into the downward facing dog because I was upside down and didn't see you. And I want you to do this for 5 full breaths. And don't be in any rush. And take a few moments bending the knees, lengthening the backs of the legs. Sally, I'm going to make a suggestion that you walk your feet in just a little bit closer. And I mean, yeah, towards your hands, lovely. Now lift your tailbone up and push back. Park your ears between your upper arms and push back again. Lift the tailbone. Now you're doing your backs of your legs. You're not holding yourself up now. Now you're actually doing the stretch. Beautiful. So in your own pace, do those 5 full breaths. And remember, every out breath, root lock. Every in breath, re-energize, lengthen. Lovely. I can tell some of you are really concentrating hard. Then when you've done your 5 or you've just had enough, come down out of your downward facing dog. Again, sit back on the heels. And I'm interested, because we've been focusing on the breath and the root lock, you might find that your wrists don't feel as tense as they normally do because you've not really been thinking about holding yourself up. Your posture was a lot better. Everybody was really far back. So release however you need to. If you want to be in a child's pose with the head rested on the back of the hands, then do so. If you want to flick out the wrists, do what you feel you need. You know what your body needs. Superb. And once more, I'm going to invite you to just have a rest and a watch, and I'll show you the next posture. So I'm going to try and kind of keep the root lock going, but we're going to add in a different dimension to this. We're actually going to put a little bit of a twist into our downward facing dog. So don't worry if your concentration with the breath goes, that doesn't matter. So we'll push up into the downward facing dog. I'm one of those that I can't always get my heels to the floor, so I very rarely do commit. But what's really important is to find that length. So I am always very strict with myself that I lift my tailbone. Then we're going to take one hand, wrap it around the opposite ankle and tuck the chin into the armpit. If I do it the other way, facing towards you, you'll see easier. So this is the shape you're going to make. And trust me when I say it looks more complicated than it is. It looks quite hard. It's actually not. My golden tip for this is that you have the confidence to take the weight back, because if you've got into the habit of resting on your wrists for down dog, as soon as you lift one hand away, you're going to feel it. You're going to know. You're going to start to feel like, oh, I can't do this, a bit exposed. So make sure that when you take that hand away, that your weight is back, that you're pushing the thighs to the back of the room and you've lifted the tailbone. So like I did, you might want to take a moment to get your alignment correct first. Lovely. So Gloria, if you take it to the outside of the ankle rather than the inside, because you can do, yes. Perfect. Can you bring your hand back forward again? We're going to do the other side. When you do the other side, I want you to think about almost like having the chin underneath the armpit. So you need enough space. Veronica, I think because your shoulders are quite high, you're finding it difficult to bring the chin under. So walk the feet back. Don't be frightened. Make a V shape. That's more like an N shape. That's it. Keep walking your feet back rather than your hands forward. Right. That's it. Now come into your twist. That's it. Perfect, Gloria. 100%. Brilliant. Hazel, you can go deeper because you look really comfortable. So I'm sorry, I'm just going to push you. So when you go into your twist, I want you to visualize lifting the side of the rib cage up towards the ceiling. Brilliant. Sally, of course, this will only work on one side for you because you've got one wrist that doesn't work. It will again, don't worry. Then when you're ready, come back down. And I'm going to say, take a few moments in child's pose. Don't rush it. Let's get the head forward. We've been upside down a lot. And we've done that little bit of a twist. And when you come into child's pose, you'll probably find that one side of your body has released more than the other. So you might notice that the back of the hips just feel a little bit imbalanced. That's just your body telling you that you've got one side tighter than the other. I've got a frog in my throat now. Oh, Linda, because you can't rest on your head, bless you. That's very good discipline of you hovering off the floor. Transcendental meditation. Beautiful. And when you're ready, let's lift yourself back up. Fab. So you've actually physically worked quite hard today, but mentally, I think there was an awful lot going on there because we talked about the breath, and we kind of incorporated that new root lock, that bandha. And that's something that over time will start to become natural. It's certainly not something that you would throw into beginners straight away. So if it didn't make any sense, don't worry. When you're ready, it will. If that helps, it will make sense over time. So I'm going to suggest that if you need to pull on a fleece or some socks or something, because we're going to cool down a little bit now, and I don't want you to get distracted feeling a little bit cold. I'm just going to take a mouthful of water. And then I'll invite you to come into the Shavasana position where you feel best supported. So in light of the fact that we have released quite a lot of tension in the back of the hamstrings, it might be that if you usually have the knees bent, you might want to just test the waters to see how it feels to extend the legs. Because oftentimes that discomfort in the lower back is because we hold the back of the legs very tight. We've also done quite a few significant twists today. So that should also help to release any imbalance that we get in the middle back and in the lower back. You might feel better supported if you widen the hands and the feet equal distance from the midline of the body. And it's your choice, but I personally find it more comfortable to turn the palms up towards the ceiling. It's a gesture of receptivity, and it also encourages that good alignment through the shoulders, that opening through the collarbones, so that you can once again rest the weight of your upper body onto the flats of the shoulder blades. Consider again how you're holding your head. Notice if you're nodding the chin towards the chest. You might want to just bring the bridge of the nose parallel to the ceiling. Feel that gentle length through the back of the neck. As you soften the muscles of the face, releasing the jaw, the temples, the eyebrows. Feel the weight of the muscles in the face and the head. Draw you a little more deeply into the support of the earth. Take note again if the tongue is forged to the top of the mouth. Just allow the tongue to relax, to release. Soften the teeth. And feel the breath comfortably flow along the nasal passages, over the throat center. Invite the breath to explore a little more deeply into the expanse of the lungs and the rib cage. With every inhalation, feel your lungs fully expand, filling your lungs completely. Then as you release that breath, feel the lungs empty. You want to fill your body with positive energy and release your body of anything that doesn't serve you. Now bring your focus to rest at the space between your eyebrows. And every time your attention slips away, pull the focus back to the space between the eyebrows. And moving from left eyebrow to right, just draw a line. Bring that line up to a center point in your forehead. Then connect another line down to create a triangle. So continue with your breath, drawing the shape of a triangle in this space in your forehead. And it may be that the triangle decides that it wants to be coloured in. So if a colour presents itself to you, you may use that colour for the outline, or you may feel that colour filling that space within the triangle. Now we've firmly etched that shape into the space across your eyebrows. So we can hold off from drawing the lines now. And just rest your full focus on that shape of the triangle in the middle of your head. Observe the colours. They might be changing. And then we're going to draw another triangle now, upside down, which overlays that triangle. So the point for that triangle will start at that space between the eyebrows. And we'll draw a line up above the left eyebrow, over to the right eyebrow, and down again to that point. So follow the same pattern as before. Etching that shape, choosing a colour for the outline if it's any different. Bringing your focus to rest on that shape. And filling that downward facing triangle with any colour or not. And then with your mind's eye, take a step further back and recognise the shape of a 6-pointed star. Your own personal Merkaba. Just rest your focus here. I'll give you a few moments of quiet contemplation here. Now, before I nudge your awareness back towards the physical body, I want you to visualize the outline of this Merkaba shape, this six-pointed star, just coming a little smaller, reducing in size, and returning that space between the eyebrows to its natural state. Start to become aware again of the breath. Deep breath in through the nose and out through the mouth. Draw the feet a little closer together. And I just want you to bend the knees up so that we can feel the soles of the feet connecting through the earth, allowing that little release in the lower back. And take a further deep breath in through the nose, releasing that exhale with an audible sigh. In through the nose and out through the mouth. Further deep breath in through the nose and out through the mouth. Then beginning to return sensation here. Wiggling fingers and toes. Wriggle the jaw and the nose. You may wish to hug the knees to the chest, or you might feel ready to roll to one side. And in your own time, blink the eyes open, then return again to a comfortable seated position. Now bring the hands to an Anjali Mudra. Touch to the head for kind thoughts, to the lips for kind words, and to the heart for kind intentions. The light in me honors the light in you. Namaste. So you are all still on mute.